She walked out of her house on a Tuesday morning, backpack on her back, same route, same routine. 15 years old, and by nightfall, Audrey Cunningham was gone. But what her phone recorded, every signal, every location ping, was about to expose a lie that would have shaken an entire state. If you believe that truth always finds a way to surface, no matter how carefully someone tries to bury it, then this channel is for you. Subscribe right now, turn on notifications, because every week we bring you real stories where justice catches up, even when it seems impossible. Like this story and stay with me, because this case gets darker before it gets clearer. It was a cold Thursday morning in County Texas, the kind of morning where the air has a bite to it and the world feels quiet and still. Audrey Cunningham, 15 years old, got ready like any other school day. Her family didn't have any reason to worry. There were no arguments, no bad feelings hanging in the air, just a teenager getting ready for another ordinary day. She lived in a rural part of Texas, the kind of place where everyone knows everybody, where neighbours look out for each other, where trust is something people are raised to extend freely, and that trust would become the very thing that cost Audrey her life. She left her home and headed towards her bus stop, a short walk, one she had made dozens of times, but she never got on that bus. When morning attendance was taken that morning, Audrey's name was unchecked. At first, no one panicked. Kids miss school. Things happen. But when the afternoon came and Audrey didn't walk back through the front door, her family knew something was deeply, terribly wrong. They called the police, and what began as a missing persons report would quickly become one of the most heartbreaking cases in Texas that year. In cases like these, investigators move fast. Every hour matters, every detail matters, and the first critical question is always the same. Who was the last person to see the victim alive? The answer came quickly. Don Stephen McDougall. He was 44 years old. He wasn't a stranger to Audrey's family. That's the part that makes this so difficult to process. He was someone they knew, someone they allowed into their world. He had given Audrey rides before, and on the morning of February 15th, he claimed that he had driven her towards the school bus stop. He said he dropped her off. He said she walked away fine. He seemed calm, cooperative even. But something in his story didn't sit right with investigators. It was too clean, too rehearsed, and when they started pulling the threads, the whole thing began to unravel. Here is what most people don't realise about modern missing persons investigations. Your phone is a witness. It doesn't forget. It doesn't lie. It doesn't get nervous during questioning. Every cell tower ping, every GPS signal, every minute of data, it creates a map of exactly where you are and when. Investigators pulled Audrey's phone records, and what they found contradicted everything McDougall had said. Her phone never travelled towards school. The signals never followed the path a girl walking to a bus stop would take. The data pointed somewhere else entirely. And then they pulled McDougall's phone records. His location data didn't match his story either. The timelines were off, the locations were wrong, the alibi he had constructed with words was demolished by data, and in that moment the investigation shifted. This was no longer a missing child case, this was something much darker. When news broke that Audrey was missing, the community responded the way small Texas towns do, immediately and fiercely. Volunteers showed up, search teams organised, drones were deployed over dense woodlands, dive teams entered the murky waters near the Trinity River. Parents held their own children a little tighter that week. For days the search went on. Helicopters, boots on the ground, prayers at church service. But quietly behind the scenes, law enforcement was already operating with a grim certainty. This was no longer a rescue mission, it was a recovery. And every hour that passed without finding Audrey confirmed what they feared most. As the search continued, investigators dug deeper into Don McDonald's background. What they found added urgency and outrage. He had a criminal record, a record that raised immediate red flags, and the more they questioned him, the more his story shifted. First it was small inconsistencies, details that didn't line up, then bigger contradictions, the kind of changes that aren't memory lapsed, the kind of changes that happen when someone is improvising, when someone is desperately trying to fill holes in a story they invented. Every time McDougall opened his mouth, he gave investigators something new to work with, not because he was helping them, but because he couldn't keep his own lie straight. Law enforcement did what they do best in cases like this. They build a wall of evidence. phone data that placed both of them in the wrong locations, surveillance footage that created gaps where McDonagall claimed to be, witness accounts that didn't support his timeline, physical evidence that grew more damning with each passing day, and then Don Stephen McDougall was arrested, not for questioning, not as a person of interest, as the primary suspect in the disappearance of Audrey Cunningham, the man who had been trusted, the man who had been welcomed, the man who had sat across from her family and looked them in the eye and told them he had nothing to do with it, was in handcuffs. Not long after his arrest, search teams made the discovery that everyone had been dreading. Audrey Cunningham was found. Her body recovered near the Trinity River, not far from where McDougall had claimed to last see her alive. She was 15 years old. She had woken up that morning and gone through the same routine she always did. She trusted the wrong person, and she never came home. Her community gathered, her school mourned, strangers across Texas lit candles for a girl they never met but felt connected to because she could have been anyone's daughter, anyone's little sister. The grief was enormous, and underneath that grief was something else: fury. In the aftermath of Audrey's death, people asked the same questions they always ask in cases like this. How does someone known to a family, someone trusted, become the perpetrator? Why do we keep seeing this pattern? The statistics are brutal and clear. In the vast majority of children abductions and homicide cases, the perpetrator is not a stranger lurking in the shadows. It's someone familiar, someone at the edge of the family's world, someone who used proximity and trust as a weapon. And that truth is one of the hardest things to sit with, because it forces us to rethink the warnings we give our children. It's not always don't talk to strangers. Sometimes it's pay attention to the people you already know. Audrey Cunningham deserved to grow up. She deserved to finish school, make memories, build a life. Her case is a reminder that justice, when it finally arrives, cannot undo what was lost. But it can stand as proof that the truth, no matter how carefully hidden, has a way of resurfacing. If this story moved you, if you believe that no case should ever be forgotten, subscribe to Crime Flux Stories right now. Every story we cover is a real person, a real family, a real community still searching for peace. Drop a comment below. What do you think needs to change to protect children like Audrey? Share this video, because awareness is the first step. And we'll see you in the next one.